Morning guys, welcome to Into Flower Fishing. My name is Pierre Hubert and today we're going to do a step-by-step guide on how to tie a damselfly nymph. The materials that you'll need to tie this fly is a long shank nymph or streamer hook, commonly referred to as a 2 times long hook. That just means that the shank of the fly or of the hook is very long. So you also want something that has a little bit more strength to the hook, so a little stronger wire. That'll also help the fly sink a little bit if you use a heavier wired hook. So the hook that I'm using is a Mouche 8443 in a size 10. For the tail, we'll be using some olive marabou. For the thread, I'm going to be using Semperfli's Tan 80 wax thread. For the ribbing, UTC Ultra Wire in gold. For the wing case, a material called Flashback. This is made by Hare. It's a semi-translucent flash material. This is 1/4 inch. We are going to cut it in half to get a width of about 1/8 of an inch. You do get 1/8 inch as well. If you buy and you see 1/8 inch, you can rather buy that. That's for the wing case. For the dubbing under the thorax, we'll be making use of one of my favorite dubbings. This is Hemingway's Hare's Dubbing Plus UV. We'll be using some of these olive shades. What's cool about this dubbing is that it is a synthetic dubbing, but they included some normal hare's dubbing, so you get that natural bugginess. They also included some UV flash fibers. You'll see that there's this purple tinge to some of the fibers, and that's the UV fibers. For the legs, we'll be making use of a single small mallard feather. This is just a naturally colored one. You do get them in dyed in olive and brown. You can make use of that, so we'll just use one feather. For the eyes, we're going to burn monofilament. You do get standard eyes or eyes that come pre-made, but I prefer using eyes that I made myself. They just look a little bit more realistic. So this is just some 25-pound Maxima Ultra Green. And to help with the dubbing on the thorax, just some Loon's low-tax Swax. And obviously to finish the fly off, we'll just be making use of your favorite head cement will be fine, but I'm going to make use of Loon's water-based head cement. So that's the basic materials that you'll need to tie the fly. The tools, obviously a vise that'll hold your hook securely. It's not necessary for a rotary vise, as you won't be flipping the fly around. Obviously a bobbin holder for your thread, normal tying scissors. You'll be using a hackle plier when burning the monofilament for the eyes, lighter, and a whip finishing tool. So that's all the tools and the materials you'll need. So let's get cracking tying the fly. Okay guys, place the chosen hook into the vise, between the jaws of the vise. Things to look out for when you're placing the hook into the vise is that the hook is level, and that the hook point and the bob, the position of the bob, are exposed, because you'll be using the position of the bob and the hook point as a reference point when tying the material in. So the first step is to attach the thread to the hook, wrap a couple of times forward, then come back over itself, let the bobbin hang freely, and cut off the thread. Lay a thread base forward, just to behind the eye of the hook, run backwards, and hold the thread base rearwards and let your thread hang freely. So two things. The first is that the thread base, we always build a thread base because it gives the material something to bite into. Without that, the thread of the material tends to spin around the hook, and it also tends to slip out, especially when you're fishing and you already caught a trout and then half the marabou tail is gone, and yeah, it just makes for a much more durable fly when you build a nice thread base. The second point that I want to make is on a straight shank hook like this, when you run the thread backwards, a good reference point to stop the thread base is if your bobbin is hanging free like now, the thread will intercept the position of the bob. So for the tail, we're just going to use a couple of fibers of marabou, not that many. We don't want a very thick tail, we just want something that gives the illusion of movement. Damselfly is very slender and much more delicate than that of a dragonfly. So we have a couple of fibers here. Measure that against the length of the hook. We want it about 1.5 times the length of the hook, like that. Transfer it to the back of the fly, pinch it in place, and with a couple of thread wraps, pinch wraps, just pinch it in place. Run the thread back to where your thread base starts, like that. That's fine. Now run your thread forward over this material without cutting it off. We'll be using the same material for the abdomen, so if there are fibers that are exposed, that's 100% fine. Run it forward to where the thorax will start, which is about 2/3 up the hook shank, or another third behind the eye of the hook. Break off a section of your ribbing material. Place the ribbing material next to the hook shank and secure it with 1 or 2 wraps. Right, and then run the thread back, keeping the ribbing material on the side of the hook. Just stop at the base of the tail. Now take a feather, a marabou feather with very long fibers, and cut off about 5 or 6 marabou fibers. You want them as long as possible, as you don't want to run out of marabou fibers while you're building the abdomen. Cut their tips to a line and tie them in by the tips. You do that because you want to create a slightly tapered body. Right, run your thread forward to where the thorax will start, and then very delicately turn the marabou around the hook shank, keeping in mind the direction that you're doing that, because the ribbing needs to be done in the opposite direction. When the fibers are getting very short, just pinch them in place like that, and then lock the marabou in place when you reach the thread, like that. Now cut off the excess, like that, and just tidy up. You don't want any unnecessary fibers hanging around, like that. So the marabou was turned in that direction, so opposite to the thread. So we'll be turning the ribbing in the same direction as the thread. This just locks the marabou fibers in place as they are quite delicate. Create a nice segmented body. Once you reach the thread, just lock it in place and then cut off the excess ribbing material. So the next step would be to start creating the thorax. So the first step in that process would be to tie in the wing case material. So for that I'm going to be making use of this flashback material. Just cut, this is 1/4 inch, so just cut the material to about 1/8 inch. You need about an inch of material. That'll just give you enough material to work with. That's it. So tie the flashback material right on top of the hook shank, like so, and wrap the thread all the way back to where the abdomen ended. That way you'll be sure that you don't leave any thread exposed. So that's the wing case. For the first portion of the thorax will be split in two. So the first portion we'll only be using dubbing. So take a bit of the olive dubbing. We're making use of the lighter olive. And before that, I just want to add some dubbing wax to the thread. A little bit will do, a little bit goes a long way. That just helps you form a nice tight dubbing loop. Dubbing noodle. Right. Wrap that around the hook shank, about half. Before bringing over the scaleback material, we are going to prepare the mallard feather for the legs. So the mallard feather, what we'll do first is remove all the base fibers, all this fluff at the back, until you're left with that. Then we'll cut a V in the tip by removing the tip, like that. And then obviously that's going to be way too many fibers to imitate the legs on this fly. So we're going to remove quite a lot of it until you are left with it. That feather is placed with the tips pointing backward right on top of the hook shank, like so. Then, with 2 loose wraps, tie in the material. You can even do 1 more, it's fine. And then pull back on the material while holding the bobbin in place. Just slacking the bobbin a little bit also works. That's it. Turn the legs a little bit. So the leg length, you want them to just reach the tip of the hook. So it's still slightly long to my taste. Like that. Now you can trim off the excess feather and bring over the scaleback material. That will also open up the legs. secure that with about 2 or 3 nice securing wraps, and then bring the scudback material back and secure that in place. We're not going to cut off the scudback material now because we still need it for the head. At this point we need to build or make the eyes. So cut off a section of your 25-pound mono and clamp it between the jaws of a hackle plier. That's too long, so I want it about, well, depending on the size of the eyes you'll make, I want it about 3/4 of an inch. You can play around like that. Now take your lighter and just take my fly away. Take the lighter and just burn the mono. You'll see that as soon as it catches, it actually goes by itself. So then you just need to blow on it. Once it just wants to reach the hackle plier, turn it around. Now you're going to do the other side. This side I can just bring in a little bit more. Just let that dry for a second or two by blowing on it. Remove it from the hackle pliers and place it right on top of the hook. Make a couple of wraps just to secure it. Now it's sitting completely skew. Now we'll just turn it and secure it with figure of 8 wraps. At this point you can also add some super glue. Now we have that. You can see the eyes there. Move the thread back to where the scudback material is. Apply a little bit more of your dubbing wax. So, takes a bit of dubbing and form quite a tight dubbing loop. We can always add more later. So now, this is where the trick lies, is to first build up behind the eyes. Going to take a little bit more dubbing. And now you don't want to just make use of figure of 8 wraps. You actually want to create a flat, wide head around the eyes. So I'll first start with the figure of 8 and then just wrap around one eye. Then I come around, apply a little bit more dubbing. Then I come around the other eye. Last bit of figure of 8 and end just behind the eye of the hook. Now pull over this last section of scudback material, secure that in place, 2 wraps, and then pull the scudback material back again. Form a nice head like that. Take your whip finishing tool, do 2 whip finishes, pulling the knot tight after each one. Cut off the thread. I'm just going to apply some of the head cement. Small drop, the top, small drop on the bottom. There you have it. And then I'm going to take scissors and pull the scope back material back tightly, like so, and slide my scissor all the way down to the head. Just make a short cut, like that. And there you have it, a very effective damselfly pattern. Might be a little bit involved to tie, but it's surely worth it. It has all the trigger points that you want in a damselfly. It's got as soon as it's wet, it's got a very slender body with a very wide and flat head, so the profile is absolutely perfect. It's also got pronounced eyes, but they're not massive, and they are very lifelike with this sort of orange red tinge to them. And it also has the legs. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the step-by-step guide. If you want any more information on it, also please read the article that we wrote on it. And cheers from Into Fly Fishing. I hope you guys have a great day. Till we see each other again. Keep well.